Welcome to the Shift podcast, where midlife, medicine, and mindset meet. We're breaking the silence around women's health and simplifying the path to feeling strong, clear, and better than ever. Hosted by me, Heidi Swap, with insights from Dr. Vaughn Watts and stories from real women, the Shift podcast is here to challenge the narrative, empower you with information, and create a new vision for your next chapter. Hey there, I am Heidi Swap. Welcome back to the Shift podcast. I am here with Dr. Vaughn Watts, and we're going to solve all the problems, all the world's problems, all our problems. We're just problem solvers, I think is really what's happening. So as we kind of go along and we do these different episodes and we talk about what questions we have or what questions that we hear, there's like all of these topics that keep popping up. And this one topic that we are going to address today is something that I know this is a shock. I know nothing about and is Dr. Vaughn's specialty. So that's kind of how these things go. But when I first talked to Dr. Watts, and when he describes himself, he's like, I'm a thyroid doc. Without maybe knowing that that's what you were going to do, that was just kind of the default. So we're going to kind of dig into this because this topic keeps popping up. And I think it's always a question of, is it a thyroid problem? Is it not a thyroid problem? Is it a thyroid or is it a liver problem? Is it a gut health problem? It's like, wow, things aren't quite right. Could be a lot of things. And we are going to just talk thyroid, right?
Yeah. Let's talk all thyroid, kind of go through I like to break it down like the science and like how it works. And so when patients would come in my office, I had a consultation room, and on the wall right here was a big whiteboard. And so we'd sit down and we'd go through their blood panels. And then what I would tell them is like, show them, say, here's your markers that are out, right? They're off. And then I go through and
from their blood work.
From their blood work, yeah. Mm-hmm. And so then I go up on the whiteboard and I would literally draw out the entire thyroid pathway to explain to them how it works and what is needed in order for each step to be completed. And then I'll show them where in that chain is broken for them.
Okay.
So this is how.
Let's go back because, me not knowing where the gut is.
Absolutely.
What is the thyroid? Where is the thyroid?
So your thyroid is right here.
Okay.
Okay. It's almost like you got like two little wings,
Okay.
And it controls metabolism. I mean, it helps a lot. The biggest one that most people feel the difference of is their metabolism. Like if they can lose weight, their energy. A lot of times women think that there are women that think that, oh, it's my hormones. That's why I don't have any energy. When the reality of it is it's actually their thyroid, which is another hormone. But and by hormone, I'm talking about estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, especially for women. There's some overlapping symptoms.
Sure.
And so it's important to understand which hormones do I need to be working on? Is it thyroid hormones or is it actually like my female hormones?
Right. So when you say it controls metabolism, we hear that word metabolism, and I've just always thought like if you've got a great metabolism, then you're burning the food.
Right.
And so you're not overweight, right?
Right. You're burning it well, you're burning it efficiently.
But really,
so you're not, because if your metabolism isn't working, your metabolism helps control your weight. But we could go real deep into it, but
really, we're talking about your metabolism is your energy in your body, like your energy, right? If you're high energy, then you're not going to, then you're utilizing, I don't know.
Yeah,
because metabolism is such a general.
It is a very general word, but it affects a lot of different processes in the body. But if you think about it from this, like from a really simplistic point of view, is think metabolism. Yeah, how well and efficiently are you burning the foods that you're consuming, so that way you're not putting on weight, right?
Okay.
Or what are your energy levels like? Because probably one of the biggest things that, let's just get into the symptoms because this kind of makes it even simpler. Some of the main common symptoms for somebody who has thyroid issues is fatigue, brain fog, anxiety, sometimes depression. They have a hard time losing weight. They're cold. Their hair is starting to thin.
Okay.
If your hair is thinning and you are a woman, I'll bet dollars to donuts that it's your thyroid.
Okay.
And there's a lot of women, I we were out last night. I noticed these things obviously because I see things, and I was walking by and I see this lady, really pretty lady, long hair, some bangs, and I could tell the way I could just tell the way she was doing her hair. As I look closer, I was like, oh, she's thinning. I bet she has a thyroid issue. But also another one is thinning of your eyebrows on the edges. That's a key indicator as well. And so those are kind of the biggest like symptoms that people have. Most of those symptoms, ironically, are not thyroid symptoms. They're as a result of a dysfunctional thyroid causing some other things, and it's the other things that are causing those symptoms. And so this is how
But it also feels like this is tricky, right? Because what mom isn't freaking tired, can't remember where her keys are, is pulling her hair out anyway? Because, like, it could be a million things. You feel like
it really can, and that's why whenever I have when anybody would come into my office, my practice, when I would run a comprehensive blood panel, even though I could sit there and go, okay, a lot of these are pointing to the thyroid, I'd still run a comprehensive blood panel because if fatigue is your biggest concern, I mean, it could be low testosterone, it could be dysfunctional thyroid, it could be B12 anemia, it could be iron anemia, it could be Epstein-Barr, which is the chronic virus of like mono. Mm-hmm. And so if you've ever had mono, it's part of the herpes family. So it stays
and it never goes away.
Never goes away. So it can get reactivated just like a cold sore comes back in times of like stress. Those kind of same types of times, that's when Epstein-Barr or mono can come back in and kind of work. And then when you have like, instead of feeling like you're dead and you can't walk from here to the bathroom, you feel like you're going to pass out because it was so hard. It's more of a just underlining chronic fatigue. You're not like, you can move around and do stuff. You're just chronically fatigued. So I always recommend if that's one of your big complaints, well, you need to run a comprehensive panel so you can start ruling out all these things because or vitamin D deficiency is another one. And to be candid, I had a number of women that come in with those very symptoms, all those symptoms I explained, but energy is always a big one. And when I would run their panels, a lot of them, I would say 90% of them, if not 95, also had low vitamin D, even though their thyroid was out of whack, but their vitamin D levels were low. In some cases, iron was low. In some cases, their B12 was low. And in like maybe 10% of the cases, they had active Epstein-Barr. So they had like 5 of the things that were causing you to have fatigue. So they had 5 different things that were doing that. And if you just checked your thyroid and, okay, we're on your thyroid, man, I'm still tired. Well, because that's just a piece of the puzzle. So I always recommend getting a comprehensive panel because then you can see the whole picture.
And what's tricky about that is that when you go to the doctor,
medical doctor, when you go to a
primary care doctor, the doctor's like, okay, well, we could do some blood work and they're going to check your thyroid.
Yeah, they're going to check your thyroid. So if you go in, they'll check your thyroid. They'll run a thyroid panel, right?
And it's tricky because
go ahead.
Well, because a comprehensive panel costs more.
Yes.
Right? And most of the time, the insurance, whatever the code is that they got to put in for the insurance, they're not going to cover that. So they
have to show really medical necessity and then they have to put their justification with medical coding showing medical necessity to run all these panels, which I'll be candid, that'd be a lot of work. Because I mean, they'll run 1 or 2 pages of blood work. I run 9. Mm-hmm. So a lot of them, they don't want to do it, or they'll say, oh, I can't run that. Because
it's not covered.
It's not covered. And in many cases, they won't run it. Even if some of them, like I told the story the other day when we were talking about hormone, my wife went to her OB-GYN, and people are like, well, why didn't you run her panels? Because I'm like, well, sometimes that miffs other doctors when you run the panel, then you go in with your panel. So depending on the doctor and the ego, that can miff them. So I'm like, you know what? Like, just because if you're going to need hormone therapy, I don't write prescriptions, so you're going to need that anyway. So just have your doc run the panels. And we go in there, and what happens was she asked him, said, hey, I want to run a hormone panel because I feel like I'm in perimenopause right now. And they said, oh yeah, well, no. I was like, okay, well, we'll run a thyroid panel. She's like, no, I want you to run a hormone panel. Oh, well, insurance isn't going to cover that, which is insane to me that they even said that. And she's like, that's fine. I'll pay cash. And they still wouldn't run it. And people are like, well, why? Well, I'll be candid. A lot of those panels, when they come back, especially if I were to hand one of my panels to just your regular primary care, OB-GYN, whatever, they can't read half those markers. They don't, because they don't normally run those. It's like anything else.
Yeah.
It's just like things that you do all the time, right away.
Sure.
So they're not used to running these markers. So they honestly don't really understand how to read it. So if you're going to get a panel run and you want a comprehensive panel, look for a functional medicine practitioner. And there are a lot of medical doctors that are functional medicine practitioners, chiropractors, DOs, NDs, nurse, like Lauren, she's the functional medicine practitioner as a RN. And so pick your poison of type of practitioner. That part's irrelevant to me, but find a functional medicine practitioner because they will run. As a matter of fact, that's standard procedure for functional medicine is to run a comprehensive because we're trying to get to the root cause. We're not trying to mask symptoms, right?
Right.
So and to kind of come back to that, when they do run a thyroid panel, for example, it's a absolute, they run markers. They only run the markers that are going to tell them enough information to let them know what drug to put you on. Mm-hmm. Okay. Which is crazy.
Well, and it is a little bit like, okay, well, this sounds to me like it could be hormone or it could be thyroid. Let's check your thyroid. The thyroid may come back and say, I mean, I've heard you talk about T3 and T4. I don't really know which is which. I'm sure we're going to get to that. But let's put you on this and see how you feel. Like how many times have we heard, let's try you on this medication for a month or for 2 months, and then come on back and let's see how you feel. And you feel a little bit lab ratty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, what are they doing?
They're
what do doctors do?
Well, this is symptoms.
They practice medicine. So they're practicing. Let's see if this works.
Yeah.
But here's the problem. When they run that panel, because it's all going to lead, they have one way of treating the thyroid. Well, outside of surgery and other things, I'm talking from a day-to-day treatment. They have one main way of how most endocrinologists and primary care treat your thyroid, and that is with thyroid meds. But the problem is this. Usually when they run a panel, they'll run TSH, T3. Sometimes they'll run TSH, T3, and T4. So they run these 3 markers. I run like 9 markers.
Okay.
Because it gives me the whole story, what's going on. They don't care about the whole story, or maybe in some of them are not even really trained to understand the whole story. But what happens is with TSH, and I'll explain what these mean. TSH is thyroid stimulating hormone. Okay, so when you have a part of your brain called the hypothalamus, and it sends a signal to the anterior portion of the pituitary to say, hey, we need thyroid hormone. And so the pituitary goes, oh, hey, and sends TSH to the thyroid. So it's sending the hormone to stimulate the thyroid to make T4 and T3. T4 is inactive thyroid hormone, okay? It's meaning your body can't really utilize it. It has to be converted to T3.
Okay.
So when your thyroid goes, okay, wakes up and goes, oh, I need to work. So it starts making T4 and T3. About 93% of the hormone that it makes is T4, and only about 7% of the hormone it makes is T3. So that means basically the vast majority of and there's other versions, because I'm sure that people kind of like, oh, what about reverse T3 and this? And yes, there are other versions of T3, but I'm not going to get that deep because it doesn't need to be that deep. I'm just trying to keep it simplistic for people.
Okay.
So what happens is basically the vast majority of the hormone that your thyroid creates is T4, which means we have to convert that to T3 in order for it then to be shuttled around and sent to different cells, and the cells can have little receptor sites that the T3 will bind to, and then the cell can utilize that, right? What happens is 60% of the conversion of T4 to T3 happens in the liver.
Okay.
20% happens in the gut, and the other 20% happens in other tissues and in organs, peripheral tissue. So the vast majority, 80% of your thyroid hormone is converted between your liver and your gut.
Okay.
The 2 organs that are the most screwed up in America are the liver and the gut.
Right.
From all the ultra-processed food, which is basically like being an alcoholic who doesn't drink alcohol if you massively consume, because it's the same thing. It's just massive amounts of sugar, right? That's what alcohol is.
Oh.
So when you have this non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which is becoming like one of the biggest issues right now in the US, almost I think surpassing alcoholic fatty liver disease. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is caused like totally by ultra-processed foods and the massive consumption of carbohydrates and sugars.
I'm not going to bring up my McDonald's run, but
no, but it's just like really, really poor diet, right? And you're starting to see that even in like teenagers and kids who are having this issue because of their parents have them on ramen and mac and cheese, So anyways.
Well, they have them on whatever they can get them to eat, right? The kids won't.
Yeah, because they didn't grow up like we did, is you're going to eat what I made.
You're going to sit here.
And if you don't eat it, it'll be in the fridge waiting for you for breakfast. That was my dad's thing. That's fine. You're not going to eat it? Because I was the picky one in the family of 8 kids.
Oh, man.
That's fine. It'll be here waiting for you tomorrow morning for breakfast.
My husband was making the kids sit there. And I have one kid it'd be midnight. I'd be like, oh, okay. I'm like sliding him dino nuggets under the table because I just can't.
You can't do it.
But, it's tough. It's tough.
It is tough. But my point is there's a lot of liver and gut issues in the average American, in which case that's setting up a recipe for eventually having a thyroid issue.
For the T4. So the T4 not getting converted into the usable hormone of T3.
Correct.
So
think about this.
Obviously there's T4.
There could be.
Okay.
So here's why it's important to run all the hormones. Because if you just run TSH, T3, like a lot of doctors do, T3 is the end result, right? And TSH is telling you so what happens is this. So it goes, pituitary, then to the thyroid, and then it goes and sends that T4 to, we'll just say for like simplicity, we'll say to the liver and the gut. And then once it converts to T3, uptakes in the cells. And once it's done that, and it's done it enough, it's like a negative feedback loop, right? It'll then send a message saying, hey, you told us to create a hormone. We created the whole process. We have enough. You can shut it off so you can stop sending TSH. So if somebody has really high TSH levels, the pituitary is not shutting off and keeps telling the thyroid to make more and more and more because that negative feedback loop is not completing, right? What happens though, if you only run TSH and T3, that tells you, okay, if our T3 is low and the TSH is high, meaning that TSH isn't turning off and we have low T3, oh, you need thyroid hormone. But do you? Because if you ran T4 and your T4, say you had normal T4 levels, well, now it's not a thyroid problem.
Right.
Now you can clearly see the thyroid is doing what it was meant to do, which is produce majority T4. The body is not converting that T4 to T3. And just so people understand what the 4 and the 3 mean, those are how many iodine molecules are attached. So what it does is it releases an iodine molecule, which then turns it to T3 and then makes it active, okay? So that's why it's super important, right? But then you could run that, and even if you ran TSH, T3, and T4, and say the numbers were off, well, if you don't run the other markers, which then tell you, total T3, total T4, free thyroxine index, free T3, and then run antibodies like TBH and TPO, which can tell you, do you have hypothyroid autoimmunity or hyperthyroid autoimmunity, or do you have thyroid cancer, right? So these can all run that. So imagine how many people are getting thyroid panels run. They're not even running those antibody markers, which they could potentially be missing thyroid cancer, right? And so when you run that, you could run those, your labs could be normal. Matter of fact, there's a doctor named Dr. Datis Karazian. He's a brilliant doc out of San Diego. Actually, I did all of my thyroid training under him years and years ago. Brilliant guy. And he's the one that's really broken up, like opened the dam for the thyroid of like really, hey, you need to understand all of the markers to paint the whole story, because there's many different things that could be causing the thyroid or showing that the thyroid is not functioning properly. And there's so many different things that it could be. And if you don't run all these markers, then you can't pinpoint where it is and how to fix it.
Interesting.
Because most women, this is what happens. Say your T3 and T4 are totally normal, and that's all they run. TSH, T3, T4, they're normal. And you're like, I have all these symptoms. They don't run TPO antibodies to check for Hashimoto's, which is autoimmune hypothyroidism. And you'll totally miss that. And I've run plenty of labs. I've run thousands of thyroid labs, but I've run plenty of labs where their TSH, T3, T4 were normal. And then you look at their TPO antibodies and it's 400. And they tell you their autoimmunity is very active, okay? And is totally missed. In the vast majority, I would say 90%, and just to be clear, as a functional medicine doctor, I am not the first person that they come in to see for their thyroid.
Right.
I'm usually the last one. And so I would say the vast majority of my patients, I would say at least 90%.
People come to you because they're sick.
Yeah, if not at least 90, probably between 90 and 95% of the people that come to my office, people have been on thyroid meds for 10 years, 15, 20 years. And they come in my office and I run comprehensive panel. And I'm like, the very first thing I say is, oh, you have Hashimoto's. You didn't put that in your paperwork. You're like, did you know you had Hashimoto's? She's like, what? What's that? Oh, you have autoimmune thyroid. Nobody ever told me that. I've been to 5 endocrinologists. Nobody ever told me that, right? Well, that's why you're taking thyroid meds and you still feel like crap. So there's a telltale sign. If you are on thyroid medication right now and you still are having some of the same symptoms, it's because you probably have autoimmunity and the thyroid meds aren't going to do anything for you. They may help a little bit. And usually this is the pattern. And it got to be such a pattern that I kind of freaked some people out when they come in the office. I sit down and go, you have Hashimoto's, were you aware of that? And when they would say no, then I would walk them through their story without them even realizing. So I'd look at them and go, okay, so let me get this. So you probably low energy, maybe hard time losing weight, maybe you're cold all the time, thinning hair, whatever. Like, yeah. So then you went into the doc to get your thyroid run. Yep. They ran a thyroid panel. Yep. And then they put you on thyroid meds. And then you felt good for a couple months. Yep. And then after about 2-3 months, you went back into your doctor because you started having symptoms again. And then they ran your panel and your panel was normal. Your TSH and your T3 were normal. Yep. So then they wrote you a script for an antidepressant. And that's when their eyes would get big because this was like 10 years ago and they did not put that in their paperwork that they were on an antidepressant 10 years ago. And they would look at me and like, how did you know that? I'm like, well, because you're crazy. I'm like, what? I'm like, well, your labs are normal. I got you on the meds, your labs weren't normal. Now your labs are normal. And you're saying you're having all these symptoms still? And the reality of it is the doctors totally missed it because it's not about T3. They have autoimmunity, which is having a much bigger issue. And that's a telltale sign. You go on thyroid meds, you feel good for a couple months, and then you're right back to having the same symptoms. You still don't have energy. You still can't lose weight. That's a telltale sign you have Hashimoto's. And being on thyroid medication will not fix that. Matter of fact, it's the dumbest thing to do, to be candid. And you should, because then you have to figure out, well, what's going on? Do I have a dysfunctional liver? Is my liver not functioning? Let's run a liver panel and see what's going on with your liver. Because if your liver's not clearing and functioning properly the way it needs to, well, then how do you expect it to convert T4 to T3? Right? It's not like that's unrealistic. If you have leaky gut, which the majority of Americans do, or gut dysbiosis, which means your microbiome was kind of out of whack because you've been on rounds of antibiotics and didn't go on probiotics to restore it. Well, how do you expect your gut to function properly to make that conversion happen? Right.
And in that case, even if you're doing a great job eating, you're still not going to be able to get your body to function in that optimized way.
So there are people. There's plenty of people that I was kind of a maverick back in when I was early in practice, because when I was first early in practice, the whole gluten thing was just big. You had all these books about gluten and how that's the cause of autoimmunity. And if you have autoimmune thyroid, I mean, you need to go off of gluten. And that's how a lot of women, especially, and I say women because to be candid, I think 95% of my Hashimoto patients were women. Okay.
Are women more prone to it?
From my experience, yes. I think the data would probably show that the same. The problem is I think there's about between 70 and 80% of the women that have thyroid issues are undiagnosed Hashimoto's. There are very few. Matter of fact, I think I've only had 2 or 3 patients in all my time that actually had a thyroid issue. When we found out if it wasn't Hashimoto's, it was conversion issue with some of the thing, or one of the liver or the gut, or it was, well, most Americans are also deficient in iodine, and you have to have iodine to create thyroid hormone, right? And so but they would control their symptoms by going totally gluten-free, which is not an easy task to do. And I was not a big gluten is the cause of Hashimoto's. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Gluten's been around for a long time. Yes, we have way more gluten in our diet now, but how is gluten going to trigger an autoimmune response when you eat gluten? You're not injecting gluten, right? So it's in the GI, it's not in the blood. And then you're like, oh, well, if you have leaky gut, then the gluten's seeping in where it doesn't belong. Right. But then the big question is, why do you have leaky gut? And here's the real answer. A lot of the data and studies show that glyphosate, which is the active ingredient in Roundup, which is sprayed on, people that hear about sprayed on a lot of crops, what's sprayed on wheat. Like that's the end, that's what they do at the end of the crop because it helps dry it out faster. Okay. So they spray it all. So probably the most heavily sprayed product with glyphosate is products that contain gluten. Okay, so when you're eating gluten, you're also exposing your body to these pesticides. And there's a lot of data and research that shows the pesticides disrupts the gut lining and can actually cause leaky gut. So for me, I would have people, while we're fixing you, try to avoid gluten as much as you can. But when we're done fixing you, you should be able to have a slice of pizza and it not throw you into a thyroid storm. Mm-hmm. And when you get those phone calls for women that have been, I have this one woman specifically, a great patient. It's in Warrensburg, Missouri, where I was practicing. And she was, matter of fact, I think she even ran like a thyroid support group on Facebook and all these things. And somehow she found me and came in, and she'd been like gluten-free for years. And if she even smells gluten, I mean, I'm joking, but I mean, just one little bite of something and it would screw her up big time. And when you get that phone call on a Saturday evening at like 9:00 at night,
which is when all the emergencies,
and she's crying on the phone because they didn't have time to make dinner because her son's playing baseball and it's summertime. And I know that life because she knows I'm a softball dad. You're in tournaments all day. So now it's 8:00 at night. And she's like, let's just let's run to Casey's and get some pizza. Like, for those in the Midwest, you all know that gas station Casey's pizza is the best pizza on the planet.
Gas station pizza.
But anyways.
Okay.
So it's like, I doing this. I'm like, and I had a slice and I actually had 2 slices and then just starts crying. And she's like, I haven't been able to even have a bite of pizza in like 3 years. Like even thinking about pizza will mess me up,
right? Because she had gut control.
Because we had repaired her gut and her gut lining. So it didn't matter that she was eating the gluten. The gluten wasn't seeping into the blood. Because then what happens is when that gets into the blood, it's a foreigner, right? It doesn't belong there. It's an invader. And your immune system sees it as an invader and goes, hey,
inflammation,
attack, go get him. And then when you're exposed to it over and over and over again, you can create a sensitivity. And eventually that sensitivity can turn into an autoimmunity, because then eventually it's like, we see this thing so much, we just need to create an antibody, which is like a memory card. So every time it comes up, the antibody just goes and does its job and it's like, hey, SEAL Team 6, go, boom. Instead of sending the army to try to figure it out, we have a strike force to go get it. That's what antibodies do, right? And that's kind of what happens with the gluten. So when you repair the gut, you repair the liver, you'd be amazed at how quickly your thyroid panel will normalize and how your symptoms will go away. And that's, to be candid, it all comes back down to that entire foundational medicine approach that I developed back in 2015, 2016, where it's before you treat anything, you have to treat the terrain. Just like a farmer doesn't just throw seeds in a field. He goes and gets the field ready first, because if he gets the field ready and then plants the seeds, he'll have a very predictable harvest, right? But if you just go out and throw seeds, who knows what that harvest would be. Know. Same with health. Right? How are you going to go and try to start fixing your thyroid if other organs within the body here are messed up that have a part in that? So we got to fix the terrain first. We got to make sure that we're not deficient any vitamins and minerals that are essential. And you can run panels for that too, to see if you're deficient, and then checking for organ dysfunction. And before you treat, I don't care if it's thyroid, what you name the condition, you want to make sure that you're not deficient of essential vitamin, minerals, and nutrients that are needed to even create these hormones, and your organs are functioning. Because you'd be amazed that just by fixing those two things,
people feel better.
Well, a lot of it is that is their problem. It's not really, you don't just wake up one day and suddenly your thyroid doesn't work. It's no different than your car engine. You just get in your car and like, oh, my engine just stopped working for no reason. No, it stopped working because you stopped putting oil in it. And then eventually it wore it down, and then you broke one of the engine parts. Same with our body. You stop putting the things in that need to be put in, or you don't take care of the knocking noise, which is our organs.
Right.
And then you wake up one day and your car doesn't start, and it's 6
Snowing.
in the morning and it's snowing
And you're late.
you got to get to work and you're late, and you're like, why did this happen? Well, because you have to take care of that car. Same with your body. And you'd be amazed just by cleaning those two things up. Or is huge for, you'd be amazed at how many people completely self-regulate just by fixing those things without having to go on medication, without even having to. And when I would have people come into my office, my approach was this. I would look right at them and say, I'm not going to treat your thyroid for 4 months.
And they're like, what?
Wait, like the first 4 months, what I'm going to do is we are going to go in, we're going to repair based on your panels. We're going to ensure that this is fixed here, this is fixed, that we're going to address these nutritional deficiencies you have. We're going to go in, we're going to fix these organs. We're going to detox out, because toxins can also cause your organs to not function, right? So heavy metals, which we're exposed to through foods, deodorant, other things, mold, parasites. I mean, there's, you name the, pesticides. A lot of those things, when you consume them, your body only pushes out 1% of that. So a lot of that accumulates. And then over time, it leads to organ dysfunction. Now think about your liver. All toxins are going to eventually go through the liver, right? So if your liver's not clearing well, and you get this buildup, and now you have this sluggish liver because it's like overloaded with toxins and it can't do its job right, you think it gives a crap about the thyroid, about converting T4 to T3? It doesn't. So I would tell you in that 4 months, we're going to go through and we're going to, and based on, and like I said, I ran toxic panels too. So mine was it wasn't just a one size fits all for everybody. It was very specific to what they had. They're like, listen, based on your panels, you're showing that you have, some heavy metals, you have some parasite, you have this. We're going to address that, nutritional deficiencies. We're going to change some diet and lifestyle things, to make sure that you're eating properly and doing these things. After that 4 months, we're going to rerun panels. And then from there, now we have a real baseline of really where you're at. Because now by detoxing you, addressing deficiency, fixing organ function, now we know your body is in the space where it needs to be to function properly. The question is, what has shifted? And this is what I found with my patients. I went back and actually, because I did I presented on this years ago. And I ended up going back and looking through all my patient files and pulled out percentages. What I found is about 60 to 65% of my patients, after that 4 months, they never moved into the treatment phase, which comes next, which is now we're going to start working on your thyroid, or the functional medicine phase. Because just by doing that work in the first 4 months, everything started working again. The stuff started doing, your body started doing, organs started doing what they needed to do, and their labs completely normalized. Of the 40%-ish that didn't completely resolve, on average, 73% of their markers normalized.
And then you're just dealing
And
with
now I'm dealing with the truth. So now imagine of those two panels, say this one here, and I had one patient, actually the very first patient I ever did this with, he had, I remember this as clear as day because it was the craziest thing. He had like 33 different blood markers that were all over the place. And you name it. I mean, thyroid issues, Hashimoto's, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, hypertension. Like he's on meds for all this too. And his markers were out of whack. We did all these things. And before we moved into running that second panel, he weaned off of his medication so we could see without your medication. That was on medication. That's what his markers were, right? We did all this work, detox, got his organs working again. And then when we reran the panels, he had, was it like 11 markers that were out of whack compared to the 33. Mm-hmm. Now imagine that, right? You go into your doc. How can I really truly know what your underlying issue is when I ran that first panel and there were 33 markers out, right?
Right. You have no idea.
I don't, because your body's not in a baseline homeostasis where organs are functioning, there's no deficiencies, da-da-da. Then you run that second panel 4 months later and you're like, oh, there's only 11 markers out. And then what are those 11 markers? All iron type markers and liver markers, which pointed exactly to what the true problem was. He was an alcoholic.
He never mentioned.
Well, he said he drank about 6 beers a night. And as I'm watching him, I'm side-eyeing his wife. And I'm like, that more like 12? So I tried to actually get him, and this is how I really figured it out, because I'm like, hey, how about instead of 6 beers? Because try to get people to go cold turkey on anything, even soda,
right?
It's very difficult. So how about instead of 6 beers, just have a glass of wine at night? And in my mind, I'm thinking that's going to massively decrease the amount of alcohol consumption a day. So when he came back and those markers were so far out, I looked at him and I'm like, are you doing the glass of wine? He started drinking beer. He's like, oh no, I haven't been doing the glass of wine. And I see the wife just to do a little skirmish thing. And I'm like, how big is your glass? It's like a goblet. So we were drinking like a bottle of wine. I'm like, oh my goodness. You missed the point. We're trying to decrease it. And you're actually probably, because of the alcohol content, you're actually probably drinking more alcohol now. Anyways, another 6 months after that, we just worked on the alcoholism and we ran panels, and his panels were perfect. No issues at all. But my point is, if you just go into even a functional medicine doctor and they run your panels and then like, okay, here's your program. We're going to get you do this and this. And they go right into a treatment program for a specific condition. How do you know that's really the issue? You want to make sure that you aren't deficient, because the two things, and this is my belief system, this is what my book, Foundational Wellness, is all about. My belief is outside of some random genetic issues that you have. My belief is this. This is my belief, my theory, what I teach, what I educate patients on. All disease is caused by one thing and one thing only.
I think I know it.
What?
Well, it could be too much of the good or too much of the bad and not enough of the good, or it's...
Well, yes, but it's one step above that.
Because you aren't getting the minerals and the vitamins.
So it's one step above that. All disease is caused by organ dysfunction. When your organs stop functioning the way they were designed, then inflammation will set in. And then inflammation will lead to chronic inflammation, which will then lead to dysfunction, which will then lead to, issues. Mm-hmm. And what causes, that's where it comes into the two main cause, actually pretty much the two causes of organ dysfunction is deficiency or toxicity. Mm-hmm. And so you're either deficient of certain essential vitamins and minerals and nutrients, because you have to realize we're making testosterone, making thyroid hormone, making, you name the different processes, making ATP. When you go and look at the actual, the chart showing at the beginning to how it has to go to create ATP or T4 or estrogen, there's a whole process, there's steps. And in certain steps, it's like, ooh, this one needs B12, needs to be here, or iodine or tyrosine. So if you're deficient of any of these essential things, you're not going to be able to complete that pathway efficiently, or you can complete it, but instead of making this much, you only can make this much, right? And toxicity, when I say toxicity is this how I define toxicity.
And I haven't had a toxicity panel run ever, and I live in a place where, the water is real. Yeah.
Well, it's mold, it's heavy metals, it's pesticides, environmental toxins, parasites, bacteria, that kind of stuff. Those are all toxins. Those are all foreigners to the body.
Which we all have.
Right. We do. But when your body and your organs are functioning at a high level, it knows how to deal with it. Because you're like every day, we're killing things that we're being exposed to. Every human walking around has cancer cells in them, right? It's just a matter of, is your body functioning at a good enough level to recognize, cancer cell or irregular cell growth, go take care of that. And then it takes care of it and it's gone, right?
But if you have too much other stuff going on, then your body can't do that. Would that be that clean out system that we talk about, or is it a more targeted clean out?
Yeah, no, it's like that 90-day like detox program. Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. Yeah.
You talk about this whole thing and it's fascinating. Number one, I think the thing that is going through my head, and I had physiology, I had microbiology, I had all those things, and I was really good at okay, I can memorize this for the test and I can hold on to it till the test, and then it was gone forever. Especially because I never pursued. You
and most other students.
I didn't have to use this in my scrapbooking career. But the body is so fascinating. The human body is such an intricate, fascinating, and at my church we just spun up the Old Testament again. Mm-hmm. And I love that part where they're like, and God took a rib and made a woman. And I think growing up as a young person, learning about the Adam and Eve story, you're like, and the rib was a magic wand. And I mean, I don't know how it worked, but the intricacies of a woman's body on top of the man's body with, we just talked about the cycles and how all of these things are at play. You think about the guesswork. I understand take this and let's see how that goes.
Right.
And try this. And we do this in our own lives, right? We start feeling crappy. And it starts out with what? Headaches every day. And so you're taking Advil every day, certain time of day.
And what does that do?
You just have to.
And what does that Advil do?
Get it through. Well, what everybody says is, you're killing your kidneys or you're killing your liver or something.
It's a COX-2 inhibitor. So basically it goes in it, the pathway that's causing the pain, it'll go in there and just block it. It doesn't mean that this pathway is working now. It's just
and
blocking
you don't
it.
care because you're like, I cannot function.
Right. But why do you have the headache? And you think about that. Are you deficient? Are you Advil deficient? You're not, right?
Right.
You could be dehydrated. You could, there's a whole list of
You'd be tired and annoyed.
There could be a whole list of reasons why you have a headache.
And you haven't had any food up until that point. And this is, I think, why I'm even sitting here. It's not because I need a physiology lesson. It's not because I'm thinking about going to become a doctor. It's because what we do as women, as a mom, as you have a career, you have a household, you're taking on volunteer responsibilities, you've got your extended family, you've got all these people that are relying on you. And when you start feeling crappy, you push through. You push through because guess what? No one's coming, right? And so you push through and you push through and you medicate how you have to get through. And you put up with feeling pretty less than great. And then you get used to feeling less than great and it becomes your regular operating system and it kind of starts to wear down your patience and it wears down your mood and it starts to translate into, I really suck at life. I actually just suck at this. I can't keep up. I don't know the answers to all these questions. I can't show up. And then I start looking not great. And when I look in the mirror, I'm puffy. My pants are tight and my rings are tight. And I'm pushing through and I actually suck at this.
Yeah.
And you start just telling yourself these stories, right? You don't, first of all, go, oh, I deserve to feel great. And so I'm not going to put up with this shit anymore. And so I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't
true. But there's the passion there because when you think about it, most people, and we're talking specifically women. I'm just going to be candid. 95% of my patients were women. And I have a passion for working with women. My mother dealt with thyroid issues that no doctor could figure out,
Right.
Which is probably what drove me here. So you're feeling bad, you're not feeling good, and you go in to see your doctor. And we grew up this way, and the medical industry was created this way, where you trust a doctor, do what the doctor says.
You do.
They know best.
You do.
Right? I grew up that way, thinking that way.
It is an authority situation.
Yeah. And they use these fancy words that are complete bullshit just to keep them up here and you're down here, right? And so there's this trust factor. Oh, well, they're so much smarter than me because they use these big words. They're just Latin words of simple words that we use in English to make you sound smart. But it builds this trust factor. So the doctor says, go on these thyroid meds. You go on them because you're doing what your doctor says. So you're doing the right thing. And you still can't lose weight. And you still don't have energy. And your hair's still thinning. And you still have depression or anxiety. Now think about that from a mom, right? As a woman, especially, and not to discount women that are not moms, but I mean, let's just be candid. If you're a female with kids versus no kids, your life is way more hectic.
You're tired.
It is next level.
Yeah.
You're running. There's so much stuff expected of you as a mom. And here you are, you're doing everything your doctor told you to. And how would you feel about it? I mean, it's not guys are a little bit, it's different. Let's be candid. Like as a guy, if I had the same symptoms where I'm like, oh, my hair's thinning a little bit. Okay, I'll just shave my head, right? I put on a few extra pounds. Okay, I got the dad bod. You know what I mean? Like this isn't a huge hit to my self-esteem.
Right.
But as a woman, your hair's thinning?
Yeah.
You can't lose weight? I mean, that's a huge hit to your self-esteem, you know, and just how you feel about yourself.
Yeah.
And there's this sense of hopelessness because you're like, but I'm doing everything the doctor said. And don't get me wrong, I am not anti Western medicine, I'm at the time and a place. The problem is medical doctors are learning how to prescribe drugs, not learning how to explain physiology and what's actually going on and getting to the root cause. And that's why the highest number of doctors moving into functional medicine, which is the root cause approach, are not chiropractors or NDs. It's MDs. Mm-hmm. There is a huge, and I've had a lot of...
Because they got into their business to help people.
And help people. And then they get in practice. And then and I've had these conversations. I remember this when I first came out of school and I went to this mastering blood chemistry seminar because I'm like, okay, I really want to dive more into really understanding blood chemistry and all these markers. And there's a book this thick that we went through in like 3 days. And it was just like drinking through the fire hose for 9 hours. I think I did that course a couple of times. Just so amazing. I remember when I went to that course and they had everybody kind of, there's like maybe, 40 people at this course and everybody introduce yourself. What kind of practitioner you are, where are you from? And it was in Oregon, and this one lady goes up, she's like, yeah, I'm, medical doctor, been a medical doctor for 19 years, and just did everything. I'm here in Oregon, and great. And me being me, like, no filter, you know what I mean?
Smart Alec.
Type A, whatever. On our very first break, I beeline for this lady, because I just graduated chiropractic school, so even in my mind still, I'm like, I have this thought that, oh, medical doctors know all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And so I go up to her, I'm talking brand new. I'm not talking a couple months out of chiropractic school. And I walk, I'm like, okay, I don't want to offend you, but I got to ask. She's like, yeah, sure, fire away. I'm like, so you've been in practice almost 20 years? She's like, yeah. And I looked right at her. I'm like, why are you in this class?
Right.
And she looked me straight in the face and goes, oh, sweetie, we don't know how to read labs. And I was like, what? It's like, basics of, hemoglobin, your blood sugar, a couple more here and there, the basic markers that they run. He's like, but we are not really trained well to read labs. And I'm like, so why are you now moving into functional medicine? She said, well, because I've spent the last 19 years trying to help people. And all I've seen with my patients is they're on drugs and then I put them on more drugs and more drugs. And nobody's getting better. And what I feel like is I'm just a legal drug pusher. Mm-hmm. And that's really what medicine has become, is I mean, you'd be hard pressed to go to your medical doctor and walk out without a prescription.
Well, and I'll be honest, if you walk out without a prescription, you're actually kind of mad.
Yeah, and well, this thing,
because you're like, I feel like crap, and I need a solution.
Well, and that was the other thing that she said. She's like, well, and then there are times when people are like, well, I'm not going to write a script, and people are like, kind of upset, and so I almost feel like I have to write them a script.
Like, give me antibiotics now.
So
I mean, I've been that mom. This child clearly has a UTI or whatever. You give them an antibiotic right now, and they're saying, well, let's just see. Let's make sure we test this. And you're like, no.
Right.
I mean, it is a delicate balance.
And that's the problem with just medicine in the United States in general, is why are patients doing that? They're doing that because you can't watch TV without seeing a drug ad. Mm-hmm. So then they're going into the doctor going, oh, I need to be on this drug. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so it's not to like harp on Western medicine. I used to say early in my career, I remember I get so pissed off when I have these patients 10, 15 years on thyroid meds. And I'm the first doc to run autoimmune markers on them, antibodies. And they'd been to 5 endocrinologists. And then as I got more and more in practice, I realized, oh my gosh, I can't get upset at these doctors.
No.
It's not really their fault, because this is how they're being trained to do it, because everything's algorithmic based, that algorithm leads to a drug. Everything leads to a drug. Mm-hmm. And so I can't really blame them, because that's how they're trained. So now it's just, how do I get out and educate people the right way? Because doctors are not being trained on how to educate patients anymore. They're being just trained to write drugs and write scripts.
I know I've shared this on this podcast, but yesterday was the fourth anniversary of my mom's death. And I keep going back and looking at pictures of my mom, because I'm a picture taker. And I kind of feel like the message that my mom got to the point, the last 4 years of her life, she couldn't speak at all. And the lights were on. Like, you knew she wanted to say things. And at first she was really angry, and that was really hard to deal with, her anger. And then she just...
Well, could you imagine that feeling of like knowing, like you have a thought formulated in your head and you can't physically say it? You almost feel like you're locked in.
No, it was horrible. And then by the last year, she just smiled. She had resigned. And she just smiled. She was just happy when we'd come get her. She was just happy when you took her anywhere. She did everything. She would click and she would snap. Just anything that she could to
communicate,
say whatever she was trying to say. And I realized as I looked through the images that I got the message. And the message was that I needed to sit here. And that when she first started noticing, I think she was 59, when she first started noticing that she was losing her words. I mean, how many of us are losing our words? We all are, right? Give me that mug,
right?
Right. Like. And it started with that. And we went to her doctor and everything's fine. And then it was like, let's put her on a mood stabilizer, which is code for an antidepressant, right?
Which itself brings a whole list of symptoms. I've seen it go from going antidepressant would cause this, and now they're on 5 drugs. And the last drug, you know what the symptom is? Depression. Oh. It's a full cycle. So, but yeah. And
then my mom couldn't sleep, right? But she was never going to ask for a sleep medicine. So, she'd take Benadryl every single day.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And what have we just learned about Benadryl? Right? Causes dementia. Can cause dementia, whatever.
Has neurological issues.
We took her to one doctor. When my mom would get upset, it was like the lady would call on her security. My mom would get upset because there wasn't an answer. My mom would start crying and she'd call in like the security guy to usher her out. I would be there. I would be embarrassed. Not once did I ever think that there was a different way, that there was a blood panel that we could look at, that somebody would be able to discern, because there was never a time that a doctor said, well, if you went to someplace else that could dig into this, like I just didn't know. I didn't know.
Well, and she's a perfect example. Like in this, if I can use this like I illustrate a point. Well, yeah, they want it. And at the end of the day, you'd be hard pressed to have a medical doctor send somebody to a functional medicine doctor to go run all those panels, right? But your mom's a perfect example because she talked about how she was always concerned about weight. So she was good with her diet and the things she ate to make sure that, she...
And she was going to make sure there was no cholesterol.
Right. And so she's probably, think about back in the 80s and the 90s, she's like, no fat, no, she's avoiding, basically fat and everything, right?
She was not eating a stitch of fat.
Right. And so we're eating other things that are filled with carbohydrates or fat-free, sugar-free, light,
Can't believe it's not
diet.
butter.
Can't believe it's not butter, margarine, all this fake food. But it's fat-free and all that because we've been told that fat is bad. Mm-hmm. And so this illustrates it perfectly because even in Western medicine, medical doctors, they're going to go and look, well, what did the study say? What does the peer-reviewed research say? Well, back then, what did the peer-reviewed research said? Fat is bad, and it is the cause of all these problems, right? And now I don't know how many years ago it was, but here, just in the recent last number of years, that study that was done from those two Harvard University professors, that sugar study that basically blamed fat for everything. Well, it's all come out now that was a falsified study. Right. They were paid by the sugar industry to write that. And then you look at what's happened. Well, no, fat doesn't cause heart disease. Fat doesn't make you fat. The reality of it is, the real science is sugar does. Sugar causes heart disease. Sugar causes a ton of problems, most metabolic issues. Right. So your mom's going in to see a doctor, if she's that kind of person, then she's seen regular checkups or whatever.
She had.
So she's talking to her doctor, and her doctor's saying, oh yeah, you're doing good because you're eating the right way because that's what the research says. So is it the doctor's fault? No, it's not the doctor's fault. He's going off of the research. And unfortunately, there's been a number of studies, especially in the 80s and 90s, that were complete garbage studies that have been, and even the cholesterol study from 60 years ago or whatever, complete garbage study on that. It's been proven wrong, but somehow we're still going off that study. So they're going to go off the studies. It's the question we have to ask is, are those studies legit?
I mean, I remember my mom suffering from extreme migraines. And so she would just put herself to bed. There was a time in my life that my mom and I didn't get along very well. I mean, I'm the oldest daughter. And so I need to bring on David. We need to have a whole oldest daughter
whole episode
conversation because there's a thing there. But I didn't like my mom because she was really unpleasant. And I didn't know how to deal with that. And I just don't want to be that unpleasant lady. I mean, there's days when you're unpleasant. And I just learned about the glow days. And so I'm going to have dinner. I'm going to have family dinner on whatever those glow days are. And so I understand that there's ups and downs and we all have that. But if you aren't okay, I want people to know that there are solutions in those blood panels. And you know what? We don't want the blood panel because it's $350. And you know what? That's a lot of money. And you can get a blood panel that's $1,800, and that is a lot of money. But I would have paid that $1,800, I would have paid that $2,000 blood panel, full blood panel with the tox screen, with the parasite side hustle,
right?
With all those things. If that $2,000 would have given us insight that would have prolonged, prevented, enhanced, optimized,
fixed,
reduced, twisted,
right?
Like, we believe in our country that that Alzheimer's and dementia is an inevitable ending.
Was it like 50% of people
It's
get it
higher
after
than that.
like, well, I'm saying after like the age of 70 or 72 is like 50%. And then as you get older, it increases.
And in women, even higher, right? And we just believe that that's the period on the end of our life. It's just that. And it doesn't have to be crazy. It doesn't have to be.
Right.
And, Eric and I, obviously the last year, being exposed to what Chelsea has shared with what you have shared, what we have learned. I kind of sat as a fly in the wall just last week as Eric got his very first comprehensive blood panel back and had a one-on-one virtual consult with Lauren, who works with us through her company, which is called Wellness Off Script. And Eric has been dealing with high blood pressure in the this should kill you range for a long time. And in the course of the last 10 years, he has cycled through heart doctor, kidney doctor, back to the heart doctor, to the kidney doctor, back to, well, let's try this, and say, we're going to try this set of pharmaceuticals. Okay, that didn't really do it. Okay, we're going to take these two away, and then we're going to try this one in. So always taking about 5 blood pressure medications, but one that was going to offset so they don't destroy his kidney, one that's going to kind of help so that it thins his blood, or who the heck knows what these are, and you don't even know. And we'd get home, we'd fire it into ChatGPT, and it's like, wow, okay, well, we're going to try all these things, and not in his case, none of them brought it down. And I think that my husband has just kind of felt like, I can exercise, I can eat great, I can do all these things, and nothing clears it. And I think he's got this like, I'm literally going to drop dead or have a stroke any second. And I think I kind of have the same thought. And listening to him have this consult, it was like, oh, this is so great. And this is so great. And you're so healthy. And yeah, you've got this little issue here. And so we need to kind of tackle this one issue that it looks like this isn't, or you've got this, but it's not absorbing. And so what could it be? And he has never in the last 10 years walked away from a doctor with any insight.
And you know why that is? Because most of these private clinics have been bought up by hospitals now. So doctors all work for big conglomerates. There's not these little private practices anymore. And once they bought them up, now they're being told
this is what
how many people they have to see a day.
Yeah.
So when a doctor only has 5 or 10 minutes with you, this is the other thing too, is like, how can you, it's hard to get upset with that doctor because it's like, this is their job and they're being told, hey, you got to see a patient every 10 minutes or 5 minutes. They don't have time to sit there. Like when I would draw out the thyroid pathway on the whiteboard.
Hour and a half later.
It would literally take me 10 minutes to do that. But our entire meeting is 45 minutes to an hour because we're going to go through all the panel. I want them to understand, because if I know that an educated patient is going to be a compliant patient because they know the why and they know the how. And I would have patient after patient. This is the second time they've seen me and we're going through labs, and they look at me and go, doc, thank you so much. I have been on thyroid meds for 15 years, and you're the first doctor to ever actually explain to me what's broken here. And that's what people crave. And this is what I want people to know. my goal is not here to bash on Western medicine because there's nothing to bash on. It's just my point is it's flawed. Your mother was very disciplined. She did everything the right way according to what we were told was the right way.
Yes, she was.
No fat, fat-free, all this stuff, right?
And she is a rule follower.
And that's the thing. And so somebody who's done everything right, very disciplined, and what she was taught was totally incorrect, and what she was taught is what guaranteed led to the aphasia that she had. I don't know if she had dementia later or anything, but it led to those neurological issues. Say without a shadow of a doubt, because you can't be fat free when 25% of your brain is fat, right?
Exactly.
In cholesterol.
I mean, that blew my mind.
Yeah, and so what my goal here is this: use common sense. And if COVID has taught us anything, COVID has taught us this: it is your responsibility to take control of your health. And you cannot take control of your health if you don't understand really what's going on. If you just blindly take something because the doc says, I don't care if it's a natural doc or a Western med doc. If you're just being given something and you take it and leave, that's a recipe for disaster, because you don't even tell me why you're taking that. I want to know the why. And I do this all the time with patients with supplements. I'm like, oh, I'm taking these 10 supplements. And I look at them like, okay, why? Like, tell me the why you're on these. And sometimes I'm like, well, I don't know. There's an influencer that said everybody should be on calcium. You do realize that if you take too much calcium, that can actually cause a problem, right? Mm-hmm. Because calcium, phosphorus, potassium, that all needs to be balanced. If you have too much calcium or too much this, your body's going to adjust to it, right? So even taking supplements when you don't need them, mm-hmm. it can disrupt your physiology. You can't have it both ways. You can't say that medicine changes your physiology and that, these supplements work and these oils work great, but I can take any one I want. I can take as much as I want.
Because it's just natural.
It either changes your physiology or it doesn't, right? So if it's natural or if it's medicine, it changes your physiology, it changes your physiology. So my goal is that people start taking health and the health of their family, but especially themselves, into their own hands. You need to be educated. With ChatGPT now, it makes it so easy for people, right? Mm-hmm. But just understand, hey, why am I dealing with these symptoms? And if a doctor can't explain to you really dive in and explain why these symptoms and what that cause is, and that they're treating the cause, and they're not just giving you a Band-Aid or a piece of tape to put over your check engine light, because that's what medicine is. Mm-hmm. Because we're not deficient in medicine. There's no medicine that cures anything, because if it did, you'd take it for a month, you'd be cured.
Sure.
And that's bad business. We're not here to cure people. We're here
we're here to keep you on.
We're here to make money, right? And so my goal is be educated, understand the why, make things make sense. Well, yeah, my TSH and T3 markers are normal. Well, of course they're going to be normal. The doctor put you on synthetic T3. So of course if I put you on vitamin D, guess what? When I run your labs next month, your vitamin D levels are going to be high, right? Or higher.
Right.
Well, of course it's going to look normal. But if they're not running the rest of the story, then you can't really truly understand why were those numbers off to begin with. Your thyroid doesn't just stop working. Your heart does not just start having problems. That doesn't exist in the human body anywhere. It is, like I said, I want people to think of it like a car. Your engine doesn't just stop working. Your starter doesn't just stop working, or things happen to it.
And if you're not a mechanic, you don't know why. Right. You're like, just call the guy and tell him to fix it. I don't care what it is.
Right.
Just tell him to fix it. Right. And so.
Right. But think about this. If you took your car to a mechanic and you said, hey, my check engine's light is on.
We'll try this.
And he went into your car and he reached up under the dash and pushes this button that you don't know exists, because they're there in many cars, and it turns off the check engine light. Are you going to drive away from that mechanic satisfied?
I mean, I probably would, because I would just want to check it. This is what I'm talking about. The problem is I just want
you didn't even open the hood.
Take the Advil.
You literally didn't even open the hood. You just reached under the steering wheel and reset the check engine light, and so it turned off. That's basically what's happening. That's basically what's happening when you go in to just get put on a medication. Unless it's an antibiotic that's going to go kill an infection and 10 days later you're off of it. I mean, there's very few medicines. I said all med, but the vast majority of medicines do not cure anything. What they do is they keep you stable so that you can stay alive longer while spending money on drugs. Right? It doesn't cure you.
Exactly. Now, as we kind of wrap up, the reason why we want to have this conversation is because this is what keeps popping up. People keep us saying, can we talk about thyroid? Because so many people are on thyroid medicine. And whether it's helping or whether there's still symptoms, or whether you're wondering, like your sister, your mom had thyroid, and so maybe you think you do, or, whatever's happening. I think the overarching message here is that there's information, there's ways to get information about what's going on in your body, your deficiency. There are people who know how to look at those markers and very precisely know what is going on. And, it was interesting because one of the things that showed up on Eric's lab was that, and he's got an iron problem in his blood, low iron. And when they pulled the whole entire panel,
they did a full iron. They didn't just run an iron marker. They ran everything. Ran ferritin.
They ran
iron
everything.
Like TIBC. They ran a full iron panel, right?
So turns out his iron in his blood is low, but the ferritin. Ferritin is super high, and so that begs the question: well, if it's in the body, but it's not getting to where it's supposed to be, what on that chain isn't happening or is happening? We've never had that information before. And yeah, maybe it's just a small thing. But maybe you just have iron poor blood.
But it's not, because think about this, right? And it's the same as like the thyroid has a similar aspect, right?
And then it's interesting because then Dr. Watts rattles this off, what he's probably about to rattle off.
So I'll do the thyroid and then I'll come back to the iron. There are certain things that you can be creating. You can go through the whole process. Your thyroid creates enough hormone, your liver converts it, your gut converts it, but it's not getting to the cell.
Your receptor sites or something.
So the receptor sites, you're like, well, why not? Well, then my very first question is, are you on estrogen or testosterone therapy? And if that could be one reason, right? And not to like dissuade people from that, because HRT is great. I'm just saying there are instances where those will bind to those thyroid binding sites. Mm-hmm. So when the T3 comes to bind to a cell, it has nowhere to park. So think about this with iron. If you are consuming enough iron, but it's just not getting in the cell, what's on that binding site? There's nowhere to park because it's bound by something else. So if I put you on an iron supplement, that's not going to fix the problem.
Right. You just have more iron to pee out.
And so then, like we talked about this, well, what could be on an iron binding site? Well, it's common that aluminum attaches to iron binding sites. And just so you know, how do you get aluminum? The majority of you listening, if you use regular antidepressant, that just look at the back, and most, I would say 98% of antidepressants have aluminum in it. So you are putting aluminum directly into the largest lymph node in your body every day. And anything you put on your body absorbs within less than a minute. So you're absorbing aluminum, and your body only naturally chelates out about 20. So you accumulate about 80%. And aluminum can do two things. One, it can go hit those iron binding sites. So now it's creating iron anemia, even though you're eating plenty of foods with iron. It can also cross into the blood-brain barrier and accumulate in your brain, which then is another thing that can lead to other neurological issues, from dementia to Alzheimer's to aggression. There's a number of things that it can cause neurological issues as well. So that's my point, is if you're educated for the why, then it's going to make things make more sense to you. Okay, my iron's low. Why is my iron always low? And then you get somebody who runs a full panel. I'm like, well, you're clearly consuming enough iron. It's just not getting in there. Now we need to find why it's not getting in there. It makes sense, right? That makes sense.
if our overarching conversation here, whether you're on testosterone or you're on thyroid or you're not, or whatever is happening, is that it's a great idea to get a blood panel, and it's a great idea to get an extensive blood panel. It's not just cheap. Insurance doesn't just cover it.
And I'm just gonna be candid. When people would always ask me, "Oh, does insurance cover it?" I would tell them, even you could run this through insurance. Technically, I could get it covered through insurance, but I'm gonna tell you right now, based on most people's deductibles and copays and all that stuff, my panel, which was like back then, I charged patients like $300 for it. Billed through insurance, $3,000. And guess what? If you haven't made your copay or deductible, or depending on what your plan is, some people's copays would have been like $600 to $800. So I'm like, you can do it, but your copay more than likely is going to be more expensive than just my panel.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so that's the thing to understand. It's not expensive. This $300 panel built through your insurance is probably, well, and that was, like I said, 10 years ago. So it's probably $3,000 or $3,500 now, but.
And so do some asking around. You're seeing a lot. You may be seeing companies that are doing blood panel subscriptions now. It's something that at Shift, we want to be able to offer a place where you can go and get a blood panel, and we can offer that service of being able to have somebody help you understand it. That's part of my vision and my hope of what this is going to become, because I want people to understand that there are answers. Just because you don't know where to find it doesn't mean that there's not an answer.
Just haven't gone to the right place.
Just haven't found it yet. And so I think that's why I want to have this conversation. If you take anything away, and I think what you have told me is that once a year, get one of those check-ins with your panel, know where you were at, look at those changes. If you can get a panel, get a baseline. The sooner you can get a baseline, the better it is, because that first panel is one thing, but the change and what you learn with the next panel is really telling you another story. And so it's important. I think that some people are intimidated or afraid, or maybe it's like, I don't even want to know. Like, raise your hand if you're one of those that doesn't really like to check your bank balance.
So the thing is, you get that panel run. Now you do know. When you run a big panel like that, you can really, truly get to the root cause.
And it's empowering.
And then it's empowering, like, oh, that's what it is. All this time I just thought, my mom had thyroid issues, my grandma had thyroid issues, so I'm going to have thyroid issues, and I do have thyroid issues, and I just have to be on thyroid meds the rest of my life, and eventually they're going to radiate my thyroid out or remove it at some point. That's just, genetics. Yeah. And I'm like, that's the biggest cop-out that medicine has given to the general public.
That's what we used to think. That's what we used to think, and now we know.
It's epigenetics, right? So you may have those genetic markers, but based on your diet and lifestyle, your inputs, the things that go into your body, that is going to depend on whether or not you turn the light switch on for that marker or that genetic marker, or you turn it off.
I actually heard someone talking about it. Just because your dad went to prison doesn't mean you're going to go to prison, right? If you do the same behavior as your dad, you're going to prison.
Right.
Just because your dad has heart disease, it's kind of the same thing. Doesn't mean you have to have heart disease, but if you have the same behaviors as your dad,
right,
then you could have heart disease.
Because you have the same DNA, so you're going to turn on certain markers.
And if those behaviors are how you eat and how you are sedentary and how, you live your life the same way that member of your family did, then that outcome can be the same, but it can be changed. And
you're not destined. You're not doomed to it. You're not doomed to it. Just so you know, you're not
right.
doomed to have the same medical issues that your parents had. Now there are certain genetic marker, like MTHFR is a marker. Like there's certain genetic marker. I get it, but I'm talking disease process, not functionality processes. I'm talking like disease, like thyroid and other things, dementia. That's lifestyle. Quick question for you. 'Cause I'm not a Starbucks fan. But say Starbucks or whatever you go to. What is that? If you're to go get something, how much does that cost?
I don't have a clue, but I think people say,
Okay, say $8, and most people
get a nice fancy
will
one.
say they even just do it 5 days a week, not 7, right?
Okay. We're gonna have some. If you save money,
if you just get your Starbucks chai, coffee, whatever, Red Bull, coffee, sugar, milk drink, whatever, and you buy your one every day, that's like $2,000 a year. Okay. If you go, you're going to spend like $1,800 to go get a comprehensive blood panel that goes and checks all of your organs, all the different systems in your body, a toxin panel that goes through and a total tox panel that checks for environmental toxins, heavy metal exposure, and mold and mycotoxins. And it also, you can get in there a panel that will run to check for vitamin and mineral levels. If you do that once a year, I mean, that's basically what you spend on coffee in a year. But the crazy part is this. Most people don't understand that when you start to have symptoms, you're already about 40% into the disease process. Yeah, I've heard you say that before. Mm-hmm. So people are like, well, why don't you need to spend that every year? Well, because that's the best preventative medicine you can possibly do. Because if you're running every year, you're running that, you're just every year. Because I'm going to tell you right now, you don't become deficient or you have some kind of little issue and then you become sick and diseased in a couple months. It takes time for that to build up year after year after year. And so if you run that panel every year, well, you always know where you are. Are you good with your vitamin mineral input? Or you've been exposed to things that are harmful to you? And how is your body functioning, your organs, your systems? You are able to catch little things that might be a little off and fix it before it ever becomes a symptom. And you're doing that yearly. That is the best preventive. That is the best money you could ever spend. And you can do that with, like I said, you don't have to do that with us, but I'm just saying in general, that is one of the best things you can possibly do is run a comprehensive blood panel every year. And at bare minimum, at least a comprehensive blood panel, you don't necessarily have to run the vitamin, mineral, and toxic markers. You can wait to see if something's off in in the bigger panel, which maybe only going to cost you $500 or $600. And if something's off, then you run those other two panels to see if it's a deficiency or a toxicity. Just running that panel once a year. So spend $500, $600 a year, preventative. You're going to catch these things before they become problems. And then you're going to know what kind of shifts in the diet and lifestyle you need to make in order to maintain your levels normal. And I always say, why, like same with the supplements. I need you to tell me why you're taking each supplement. And because you heard an influencer talk about it on Instagram is not a good reason. You show me a lab that shows me that you're calcium deficient. Right. Or show me this or that or whatever. There's certain ones that everybody's deficient in. But my thing is, why guess when you can test?
Yeah.
Why guess? Just run the panel.
Yeah.
We waste money on a lot of stuff. Let's be honest. If you really take account of the things you spend money on, I can't
go down that road.
You go, oh my gosh, everybody spent money on that stuff. And it's like, but we got to start prioritizing our own health.
We do.
And especially as a mother and as a grandmother, there's way more expected out of you. I'll be the first guy to admit it. I'm sure there's many other husbands that'll admit it. I know there's way more expectation from the kids and everything else from my wife than even from me. They're like, oh, dad's working. So then it's like everything else is on mom, right? There's a lot going on. So imagine how better of a mom you could be, how better of a grandmother you could be if, one, you feel good, you're healthy, you're not tired, you are able to lose that extra weight that you've been trying to get off finally. Your hair finally stopped thinning. So now you actually also feel really good about yourself.
And the example that you are when you take care of yourself, that is enough of a reason.
Because that's the problem. We need to change society because society has taught that,
rub some dirt on it.
This is your lot in life, ladies. You want to be a mom. This is just, you got to suck it up and you sacrifice. Mom sacrifice. How about we change that narrative to, hey, you are the beacon of light. So you're the standard setter. And so you're either going to teach your kids that taking care of yourself so that not only can you feel good about yourself, but you can be more productive and be better at the things you're doing. Mm-hmm. That is a priority, because I can be a way better mom or dad if I'm not tired all the time and I don't have migraine, I don't have a headache and all these. And by the way, if you have migraine, headache, that there's something going on. There's something triggering that. Right. Your brain just doesn't have a headache. So imagine how much efficient you could be, better quality of life, how much better you feel about yourself. So let's start changing the narrative. Moms, you don't have to sacrifice you. You might be sacrificing your time and sacrificing your sleep and other sacrifices. And that's never going to change.
You might not get the fancy jeans.
Right.
You might have to get the normal jeans.
Right. And that's never good. And that part's not going to change. But sacrificing yourself in how your health, that's not okay.
That's such a great differentiation. I love that, because it's true.
Because you look at, and I know we're kind of running a little long here, but I just feel this is important. I just think about it because I've worked with so many women, and it's heartbreaking to hear some of these stories and how these women feel about themselves. Of course, they're depressed. They're 50 pounds overweight. They're super tired. They don't feel good about themselves. They don't feel sexy. Yeah. So they don't even want to think about sex or anything, because they don't, like you said, lights have to be off. They don't want their husbands to see them naked. And you want to know what? I'm just going to tell you, ladies, your husbands don't care. They just want the connection with you. Yeah. But you're keeping that connection from your husband because of how you feel about yourself. Yeah. So not only is it affecting your health and affecting your ability to do things, it does affect your relationship with your spouse, you know? And this isn't just women. Men, this happens with men too. It can the other way around, but let's be honest, it's more common with women because women are more likely to sacrifice their own health, you know?
That is way down the list of the things, that you're going to prioritize. But it even, like, when you feel crappy about yourself, it affects your relationships in a lot of ways. I was watching the show Hairspray over the Christmas break. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you ever seen the one with John Travolta anyway. It's the Hairspray movie, and I had forgotten that John Travolta plays the mom of the main character. I can't remember names because I can't remember names, but the main character girl who gets the spot on the Hairspray show, right? Like, you know what I'm talking about when I say the John Travolta character. Well, she doesn't leave the house because she's so big. And the song is like, welcome to the 60s. Yeah. Like, anybody can leave. Anybody can be anybody they want in the 60s. Like, she can leave the house, and they go to a dress shop and she gets a pink dress. And I think that narrative of us not feeling good enough, it affects the way we present. And that isn't just the way we physically look. It's how we emotionally look. It's how we mentally look. It's how the health is. And, one of my big beliefs in the shift movement is confident. If we can build our confidence to show up, to be able to get up on a ladder, to be able to, get out there and do the yard work, or go to a weightlifting class that we might otherwise feel insecure to go. The confidence is going to be part of keeping us busy and alert and engaged and happy.
And stepping out of your comfort zone, things that you wouldn't normally do. Yeah. And you'd be able to, you build that confidence, you're able to feel much better about yourself. You don't have to avoid things. I look at, a lot of the pictures with my mom. I love my mom.
She didn't want to be in the pictures, probably.
She want to make sure people are in front of her.
Yeah.
You think we care?
You want
We
her.
don't care.
You want her, but you want her to be
We want her to
happy
be
and feel good. But
right. But I mean, I
didn't matter.
understand.
Yeah.
I understand how she feels. And I'm just saying this because the majority of my thyroid patients really struggle with weight. And I'm not talking, no, I need to lose 15 to 20 pounds. I'm talking they struggled with weight. And their body's just not allowing them to release that weight. And it really, truly affects so many things. And I tell you what, there's answers for you. You just haven't got the right education. So go to the doctor that's going to give you the right education. If they can't tell you why that marker's off, like what's causing that, and that they're going to treat the cause instead of giving you something to mask the symptom, you're going to the wrong doctor. We need to change. We need to shift. And we need to expect more from our doctors. Tell me why. Don't just tell me, the mechanics, we did this and this and this and this. I'm like, show me the parts you pulled out. I'm not just going to pay money because you said you changed my starter. I want to see you actually change my starter, right? You're going to demand more from a mechanic.
Yeah.
We need to demand more from the people that are that are helping with our health. And that starts with you wanting to understand, why is it happening this way? What's causing it? And how do we fix the cause? I don't want a Band-Aid. I don't want you to reach under my steering wheel and reset the check engine light. I want you to open the hood, tell me what needs to be fixed, how do we fix it, and then let's start working on the root cause, not the symptom.
Well, and I mean, I know, to play off of that, like now mechanics, they run diagnostics, right?
Yeah, right?
You
right.
just
massive diagnosis.
Plug the car into the computer, and then the computer tells you what's wrong. That's just like a blood panel.
It's like a comprehensive blood panel. Yeah,
right?
For sure.
And so,
great analogy.
Anyway, we'll wrap it up. I appreciate your vulnerability.
I thought I was going to get through though, like the first time about my mom, because I was going to just brush by it in like 2 seconds.
He cannot talk about his mom and your patients. Then that's the thing that we love about Dr. Watts, is that he is driven by that love and that genuine concern, and can feel that when you sit here with you. So thank you for that. You guys come back next week and listen for more and want more for yourself. Over now.